Hello, Samadan here, and today I'm going to talk about alchemy, how you get started in it in Shadowlands, what's going to be good for gold making, and other things you can add into alchemy in order to make a decent amount of gold. Now at this point of the expansion, alchemy is really good because we've got a solid start on the mythic dungeon progress, the mythic 0 and mythic pluses, and all the PvP content all requires a fair amount of potions. So you'll find on raid nights particularly that alchemy is in very much high demand. So it's a great profession to get started with. You don't even necessarily have to have it on your main because you can do most of the things you need to do with alchemy on a level 50 character as soon as you get to Shadowlands. You don't need to worry too much about reputation and things like that unless you want to get everything in there, like the recipe Shadestone and Eternal Cauldron being a couple of the things there. But first off, let's have a look at the leveling process for alchemy. So here I have my Mara board that has the leveling process of Shadowlands. You can also look at sites like wowprofessions.com and Wowhead and places like that to get a general idea. The basic process is buying herbs to make the potions, the ones that give the skill up, and then work your way through everything until you get to the end. That's a very simple overview, but the way I went through it was I ended up making spiritual healing and mana potions. And then I started making Shadow Core oil and Embalmer oil. Now these are both quite good and will continue to sell, so I would suggest carry on making those until they go green or even until they go grey, because those will get consistent sales as long as the profit is high for you. There are some cheaper alternatives here for the leveling process on the left, which is basically to make ground versions of some of the herbs. These will be really good for skilling up without a huge amount of cost. So if you're finding you don't have a ready amount of gold available to level up your profession, you may want to jump onto this side to get through some sticking points. You may have to do it anyway because there are certain places where you can only do that. But otherwise, if it's making a profit for you, I would say continue making these. And then we move on to some other potions. Hidden Spirit for 35 to 45. Pop over to Ground Marrow Root for a while. And then back onto Soul Purity or Unhindered Passing. Spectre Swiftness 60 to 80, that goes yellow at 70, and then you work through, do some Ground Vigil's Torch 80 to 95, that goes yellow at 90, and then we jump onto Psychostomp Speed and Hardened Shadows or Spiritual Clarity. These are the utility potions. They don't tend to sell so well. And then we're jumping over here to Ground Widow Bloom 105 to 123. And then we're back into making potions. The Potion of Phantom Fire is really good. That's a good seller, so if you can make as much of that as possible, that works. The Crafter's Mark is actually quite cheap to make, so if you're getting a point there at 145 to 150, that will take you through those. And then at the end you've got the Spectral Potions and Flasks, which will take you all the way from 150 to 175, and hopefully these will give you a good profit in the process. Now when I did this, the overall cost for me was about 90,000 gold, buying the herbs as I needed to make the potions, and I just went through from start to finish. It was fairly straightforward, quite quick to level up, so it's one of the easier professions. So I was able to go up all the way up to 175, then we have all of the different potions here. The only ones I don't have at this point is the Eternal Cauldron, which needs the Wild Hunt Revered. That's going to be useful if you're raiding. Now the Eternal Cauldron is actually account bound, so you can't sell this to other players, but if you're on a raiding guild or something like that, you can always have this on an alt, make the items and then bring it along to your raid if you need to. Then you've got the Crafter's Mark 2, which is useful if you've got the Venari rep. You could tie this in with some other profession that really makes use of the Crafter's Mark 2. There's not a lot here from an alchemy point of view that actually make use of this, so you can safely ignore this. Shadestone's quite a good one, that sells quite well, currently at 3,000 gold on my server. Crafting could be fairly expensive depending on the price of your herbs, so watch out for that. So you buy this with Sinstone Fragments. It doesn't tell you this, but you actually need to be honoured with the Avowed in order to be able to purchase this, so make sure you get your reputation up if you're after this. It would be a decent profit if there's not many selling on your server, so look out for that one. And then a Cosmetic Red Noggin Candle is another one that I haven't got yet. So you can get most of the things you need to make a decent profit with alchemy without having to get reputation or to level up to 60. I'm currently level 53 here on my Worgen Druid. Let's look at the good sellers and what's got a good profit at the moment for selling. We've got here You can see a mix of things that are in profit for me with some reasonable sale rates as well for the combat potions. We also have flasks here, the Spectral Flask of Power and Flask of Stamina. Obviously I've not been doing the Crafter's Marks for this character. And then the ground herbs, not necessarily needed. The Embalmer's Oil is a good one, and the Shadow Core Oil. Quite competitive markets those, so watch out for those. The Shadowghast Ingot you can actually make quite cheaply using blacksmithing instead of this way. You can see here my crafting cost is 96 gold using blacksmithing, and here my crafting cost is 389, so that's not necessarily a good one to go for. Then if you're level 60, you can make yourself a Spiritual Alchemy Stone, which is a nice trinket for yourself. Then the utility potions, not a very good profit for me at the moment. The sale rates aren't particularly great either, so those are potentials, possibly the Potion of Hidden Spirit there depending on the price of your herbs. So overall there are some good options here in Alchemy. Here is a typical mailbox of the sort of things I've been selling at the moment. You'll see here's a few BFA potions as well, but also Spectral Flask of Power, Shadow Core Oil, Endless Fathoms, another BFA one, Phantom Fire, good seller, Spectral Agility, Deadly Fixation, and then a load of expires. So typically that will be my mailbox. What I'll do is normally just relist all these on and then restock the ones that have sold, and then buy some herbs if I can find them cheaply. The key here with Alchemy is really to get the most profit out of things, is to try to buy as cheaply as possible. Now usually those kind of prices will be on, say, a Monday morning early on is a good price. I usually have a shopping scan that is based on my smart average buy price, and I'll try and pick up the ones that are below my average buy price and keep a stock of those, and if they are particularly over my average buy price then I'll try and get those cheaper at a different time in the day, or maybe go and farm some myself if need be, or adjust my prices to this new price depending on the situation. So the balance with Alchemy is all about getting your herbs nice and cheaply. If you are going out and collecting them yourself as a herbalist, do remember that your time does cost money, so don't consider that as something that's free. It still has to factor in the price you could sell it for on the auction house. So have a look at your prices, make sure that you're on or below market price for each of the herbs, and that way you should be able to get a decent profit margin on your potions themselves. Now usually I like to save selling my potions till the evening, usually on raid nights, Thursdays and Fridays and the weekend. You'll see a lot of sales that way. It can be quite a competitive market, so you'll get undercut fairly rapidly. I tend to fire and forget with mine. If I get some sales then great, otherwise I'll carry on with the rest of my adventures in Azeroth. So alchemy itself is a really nice, neat little profession. You can add it to your repertoire if you haven't already. And if you have got it as a profession, you've also got the BFA. If you've got up to Silas rank 3 and you've done all that throughout BFA, these are still selling, some of these items, so it's worth having a look at those as well. As you saw in my mailbox there, I have been selling Endless Fathoms and Flask of the Undertow. People sometimes buy these because they're a little bit cheaper than the current Shadowlands ones. How long this will last for, I'm not fully sure. But if you do have it, then and you do get the Silas proc, then it's worth adding those into your rotation as well. I think over time, as long as you keep your herbs nice and cheap, you're going to be able to make some decent profit throughout the course of Shadowlands with Alchemy. There's nothing much really in terms of daily cooldowns that will affect you too much. I would say carry on with just the potions, buy the herbs low, sell the potions high, or when they're in a profit, and you should be good for most of it. You will have to have a fair amount of gold in order to be able to buy the herbs ready for the next batch of processing, because although this says like 38,000 gold, a lot of that will be respent in buying more herbs for the future. So it's one of peaks and troughs, not as much as the legendary crafting professions, but it's one that still you've got to have a decent capital of gold in order to be able to reinvest in the profession. This is my TSM graph for Awakening My Alchemist, not got a second profession on them, and you can see the peaks and the troughs here as I've been buying and selling over time, using that money to transfer to other characters or tokens. And if we look at, where are we at, Shadowlands here, so that was the gold I had originally. I passed some gold on over and spent all that, and then I've worked my way back up with Alchemy maxed out, and I've been able to make a decent amount of gold this way throughout Alchemy already. So that's 122,000 gold at the moment since this beginning part here. Looking at that, my top item is the Spectral Flask of Power. and the top expense has been marrowroot, and the average profit per day has come to an average of 3,000 gold. That's in that time period. So I can definitely see alchemy being a great profession throughout the expansion. This was my results through BFA. Obviously these are big expenditures of tokens. So alchemy is a fantastic profession, one I'd certainly add into all of my other characters and then increase my gold making throughout the year. So I highly recommend it. So that's alchemy and the leveling process and the profits you can make with it. It's certainly obviously server dependent, so see how you get on with yours. See what the prices are of your herbs, see if you can get them nice and cheaply, and then add that to your rotation of professions. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to get access to my groups and operations, they are all available on my Patreon. The link to that is below. If you want more guides to professions, there are more on my YouTube channel, as well as using TSM and also my Let's Play series. So there's lots of information there. Have a look. And if you have any questions, please do ask me in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them, or go and join my Discord where there's plenty of people there who will happily answer them too. So until next time, happy gold making, and I'll see you very soon.